You can't do this in Cuenca, Ecuador every day.
You can't do that in Cuenca?
Not every day, not outside.
Oh.
Heartfelt thoughts of moving abroad. This is the stay-at-home lifestyle, work-from-home lifestyle, and you know, we had our routine where we would do, you know, we would do some work in the early part of the day. Then we would do different kinds of activities, and you know, and then we would have lunch, and then we would spend the hot afternoon by the pool, you know, and then we would do some more activities from home, and or go shopping or something, and then we would have dinner, and then we would go outside again and be outside by the pool, by the veranda, and that kind of. It was just kind of an enjoyable lifestyle, you know, about 6 months out of the year. And then I recall 6 months out of the year it was cold. It was winter, you know, spring or turning into winter, and regardless, it wasn't a poolside weather kind of existence. And I remember at times just feeling like I was bored and didn't, you know, have enough to do or to enjoy myself. I mean, I could always work, you know, but that's I mean, there was plenty of activities that I had. It's not, you know, it's not like I didn't have activities, but they were all centered around some sort of work. And as far as just something you do just for the fun of it, which a lot of the work I did was fun, but that's not what I'm talking about. You know, I'm just saying, you know, like the relaxation by the pool, the swimming kind of thing. I remember finding myself always wishing that it was spring again, just so I could enjoy myself in the garden again, because that was one of my hobbies. Even though I did it for healthy food, it put me outside. Can you hear the tropical birds here as I'm talking? This is what I'm talking about, being outside and hearing the birds, and just the peacefulness of it and the enjoyment side of it. You know, during the winter, when I didn't have that, I found myself, you know, wishing that it was spring all year. And along comes this idea that, hey, you could go to this place called Ecuador and you could have spring all year. Well, to me, of course, that sounded enticing, because, and it was one of the things in our list. We talked about, you know, checking the boxes on our list when we first started making videos over there in Cuenca, Ecuador. But the way you picture it in your mind is not the way it actually plays out, because, well, it's a different place. I mean, I know that, like when I'm sitting here, for example, by the pool, and I have summer weather, and I'm listening to these parrots just singing away, and it's just beautiful, and all the leaves and the fauna and the trees, right? And let's just say that it wasn't in Panama, that it was, you know, in the south of the United States. Well, that picture is going to go away. It's going to become fall and then winter, and you might find yourself thinking, yeah, I really wish it was summer again so I could enjoy the birds and the pool and the. But then you move to somewhere. You move somewhere like I don't know, some really hot desert, and it's just not the same. There's no birds. There's no, you know. I'm just saying that you can't picture it in your mind the way it actually is until you get there, and because you can't rely on. Because there was plenty of there were blogs, there were gringos, there were blogs, but that's one of the things that prompted us, that we started blogging and telling it like it is, because nobody really was. And you know, I mean, they were all just commercials and promotions for the place. They weren't really, I mean, they're just not going to really get down and deep in the details, and if you try to contact them, they really kind of don't have time. So the bottom line is we had to come down there, and then you go to Ecuador and you find that yards are they're not just in short supply, they're like collecting rare stamps. It's like there's something really rare about having, you know, I mean, to the point where they're called green space. And this isn't, you know, to be disparaging. It's just to, you know, to outline what I was feeling when I was thinking about my checklist and sitting there, you know, in the middle of winter, the pool's closed and it's all green with algae, and there's no gardening going on, and you know, and the half of the birds migrated south, and all this kind of thing, and you know, you're picturing in your mind, wow, eternal spring, you know, remember that, Angie? Eternal spring, perfect weather, you know, year round, and you're imagining, you know, I imagined myself like what you hear right now with the eternal spring, you know, with the birds all year round, and being able to garden and having a big yard. And
Honey, this is eternal summer, though.
well, Panama's eternal summer, Cuenca's eternal spring.
Your feet just roasting.
And so to each his own. I mean, if you like summer, then Panama for you is eternal summer. For you, it's that daydream. And I was saying that the daydream for me was for the eternal spring was definitely a strong pull for Ecuador, but it never really materialized for me in the way that I had it pictured, because my picture was stemming from what I already had, you see. What I already had is what my picture in my mind was, and my mind's eye, when I went to Ecuador, the picture changed. Even though you had the eternal spring, it wasn't the same picture, and it was woefully lacking from what my picture was. You know, what you have here is you've got a lot of the northern parts of the hemisphere. You've got all of Canada and all the northern states, and people that are being pitched that they can, you know, quit shoveling snow and come down to eternal summer. And that's what the pull is in Panama, and that's also happens to be, well, for example, a lot of the places in Canada, the real estate's just as expensive as California. It might as well be California when you're looking at a lot of places in Canada, like, you know, Vancouver, BC, or any of those coastal areas, or a lot of the big cities. You know, the real estate is in a lot of areas just like if it was California. You know, we've said in parts of our literature that when you're coming from these kinds of places, you know, 90% of the rest of the world, I like to say, I don't really know the percentage, but it's a very large percentage of the rest of the world, could be 90%, is cheaper than California. You know, and if Canada is priced just as much, if not higher than California, then you could say the same thing about Canada. So what I'm saying is, why would you want to compete? Why would you go somewhere and want to compete for real estate with people from the most expensive places of real estate in the world? You know, this makes no sense. Even so, we have completely hacked Panama. Completely. In a previous video, I said we had hacked Panama except for the real estate, but we now have also hacked the real estate. As far as us as a couple, we could live in a furnished, small, it would be a small place. It wouldn't be, you know, the houses, the $300 4-bedroom houses I've been talking about in Ecuador. But that's because we have a family. But if it was just dealing with, you know, a couple or a retired person, you know, but it would be a place with a pool. So, you know, our situation is that we do have grown sons and we have a family, so there's a little bit more of a bigger picture in that, and so it isn't quite going to check the box off for us.
My Cuenca Ecuador dream, what about yours? Maybe for this video. Signing off.